Welcome, everybody, to episode 160 of Two Goalies and Mike, brought to you by Fatty Beer, Western New York's premier market and tap room, where you can probably feel as just fun as I did just watching Hurley's.
We're in the off season.
Whatever it just did. But no, Western New York's premier market and tap room, with multiple locations with over 300 beers to choose from. One of the best places to go, where it's for a sporting event, whether it's a Sabres game, a Bills game, the Olympics. Currently, they're playing those at all their locations right now. Great deals on if you're a Mug Club member. If you want to become a Mug Club member, make sure you go check them out. Tell them Two Goalies One Mike sent you. You can't go wrong. Live music, entertainment, and trivia at all locations. And of course, don't forget Buffalo Go Apparel. Buffalo Go, one of the best spots to get all of your locally designed Buffalo sports apparel needs, your shirts, your hats, your hoodies. They have everything at Buffalo Go Co. on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure you go check out some of their new designs for their golf polos. Make sure you pick up a bucket here, the 39 Hashik goat bucket, and then the RJ bucket as well. Some of our own local designs over here from Two Goalies One Mike, and hopefully have some more for next season too once we actually decide to design some stuff. Hurls, 2 weeks in a row, we've done a good job. 2 Tuesdays in a row. Not a ton of happiness in the hockey world, but I am happy to report that after I went to the gym today and weighed in, I have lost 10 pounds. So I'm inching closer to getting back on the ice. I know, a couple clicks for me. I'll exactly right. I'll take it, man. Orthopedic doctor told me at UB that I needed to lose some weight because of the arthritis in my knee. Down to about 222. The goal is probably to get around 205 to 210. Stay right around that range. So to alleviate some of the pressure on my knee. So that's pump for that for sure. I don't know, Anthony, what's going on in your world?
Not too much, I guess. It's good luck since we recorded last a week ago. A day later, Luukkonen signed his deal, which is most of what we talked about last Tuesday. So maybe tomorrow the Sabres will trade for a top six forward. Who knows? I would say that, as we said, that was a necessary domino in the Sabres offseason in terms of getting to where the team needed to get with their cap, and also just generally having a better idea of how much room they're going to have to work with for this upcoming season, which after the 5-year contract for Luukkonen with an average annual value of $4.75 million a year, and accounting for what potentially would be a Krebs restricted free agent arbitration deal as well, I think they'll still have around $7-8 million, depending on how everything works out, of cap space leading into next season. And that falls right under the umbrella of how much it would potentially cost to pay for someone like a Trevor Zegras, like a guy that you would want in your top six. Who knows?
Well, they can just do it now. They could always just do it now. Like, they don't have to wait till next year.
Well,
drives me nuts.
No, they could do it now. They could do it in late August. They could do it in mid-September. As we said, I think it's going to probably likely be closer to the beginning of the season than it is to right now, as teams figure out who's going to make the team, what prospects are going to come over. As we said, especially the Flyers, given how active they've been. They also signed Konechny since we spoke last, another guy that we had potentially talked about as a trade target for the Sabres. So there has been some news, and there has been some movement in the NHL world, but specifically with UPL, I think we were pretty spot on with
our numbers, yeah.
Yeah, with the numbers of how long. I thought it was potentially going to be $4 million, but 4 years, but 5 years is not too surprising. And the AAV of 4.75 a year, based upon the projections of goalies at his age and with the amount of games played and his production and whatnot, especially this past season, I think everybody could agree that was a pretty fair deal.
That was like probably the holdup too. You have to imagine, right? Like probably term. Like it had to be term. Like I definitely in. Me trying to show off the background. Actually, I like the background. This is new, isn't it?
It's it's my dining room, but it's the off season for me too. I'm working out the kinks with everything.
Well, I listen, bud. I like it. It's not as busy as mine. I always try and keep everything like so you can visually see it. I kind of jerk around with the camera a little bit, but I might try and make mine just a little bit less busy. But we'll see. Yeah, I think the holdup for sure was term. I think that we were both probably surprised at 5 years, right? I didn't think it would come in at 5. I just didn't. I thought probably 3. I thought maybe UPL would bet on himself a little bit, take a 2 or 3 year deal, and hope to cash in that time. Maybe go from being a $4 million goalie to a $6 million goalie. Who knows? But if he's happy with the deal, I'm happy with the deal. It's nice to have possibly one of the best two-headed monsters in net going for the next potentially 5 years. And I think we mentioned last week, if like development with Devin Levi, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, because he did have a pretty phenomenal podcast interview with In Goal Magazine, one of my favorite podcasts, honestly, as a goalie. Just if he develops the way me and you anticipate he will, that UPL contract, not that I'm hoping for this, it is a very tradable contract, much like the Olmark deal.
Yeah, I think the comparison that people made down the line, if it does work out the way that they're hoping, would be an Allmark Swayman type situation, that you have 2 1A type guys, if anything, a 1A and a 1AA, one guy that eventually separates himself like Swayman did this past season for the Bruins, just because he got hot in the playoffs, and he got to the point where they couldn't not play him. So now they traded him to the Senators, and they have a situation where they have their long-term starter going forward, and they don't necessarily need that type of situation anymore. But I think that's the best possible situation for the Sabres, that both guys push each other. Both guys play extremely well in the next couple of years. They're still obviously very young, and they both need as much experience as they possibly can get. And that especially speaks for Devin Levi, who has way less pro hockey experience than UPL. I think we saw the highest ceiling of what UPL could be last season, as everybody saw, especially over the second half of the year. After January 1st, he was a top 5 goalie in the league. So you hope that continues, starting off from mid-October when they're over in Prague against the Devils, and then you see what happens with Devin Levi. I think either one of us would be completely fine with him being a backup, or getting a lot of time in Rochester to see as many pucks as he possibly can.
They take Kulik probably on that road trip, right? Like to Prague. Like he's from there.
Yeah, it also
that's kind of like you always try to showcase the players that are from that area.
For sure, but I think it depends on if he makes the team or not.
Yeah, I mean,
and it also depends on if they trade for another guy. Because if he has this unbelievable camp and they slot him into that top 6 or even on that third line or first or second power play, I think that makes all the difference in the world. But if he doesn't make the team and they send him back to Rochester, he probably won't make that trip.
I think he's the bubble guy, right? Like Kulik is definitely the bubble guy now that Savoy is no longer with the organization. Like
Rosine as well, because I think he has a little bit more of a two-way game, but. Yeah, those guys, obviously, given that they were one of the first couple call-ups last season, for sure. And it's not something Sabres fans necessarily want to hear, that they potentially could be that mystery addition to the top 6, or you move Zucker up and slot one of them on the third line. But at the end of the day, their preaching point for the past couple of years has been drafting and developing. And these guys have been in the system for 2 to 3 years now. So if they get to the point where they are NHL ready, and they are ready in the JJ Peterka, Jack Quinn sense of already producing the AHL and eventually coming to the NHL and producing after that, I think everyone would be happy with a 40-point season from either guy in the NHL this season.
Like if Kulik comes in, say he plays next year and he's a full-time guy and he gives you the year maybe slightly better than what Benson gave you, are you disappointed?
Absolutely not. No, not at all. And I think he's very close to ready. I just think that for the Sabres to make the playoffs, this team needs a little bit more than that. They need a more established point producer in the league, someone that they can count on a little bit more rather than a 19-year-old rookie coming in and performing beyond his own expectation. If they were a perennial playoff team and you could slot him on a line with guys that have had proven production for years and years and years, I think this would be a much more tenable situation. But we're not at that point. Last season, everyone thought was going to be the year that everybody continued to take that next step. And then it was the year that Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, Dylan Cousins, with a variety of injuries and a variety of situations that weren't necessarily in their control, all took steps backward. And the Sabres really, really suffered from it. So, yeah, I think we'd all love Yuri Kulik to be incredible next year. But given what happened last year, that makes that situation a little bit more precarious.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I know your point about Rosine, being a better 200-foot player, but I think we have enough guys, especially in our bottom six, that are going to be much more responsible playing the 200-foot game.
Totally.
You have Zucker, you have Malenstein. You brought these guys in to be those guys. While I don't think that we have 3 scoring lines as we sit right now, not personally, I just don't think it's close. I think you have 2 scoring lines. I think that you can afford. I personally would rather see a Kulik just because we have enough of those guys. I want to have a guy that's going to be more threatening to put the puck in the net, and that's who Yuri Kulik is. I've seen people compare him to Olofsson. I personally disagree. I think he's younger. I think there's more room for him to develop and reach that ceiling and learn, hopefully under a guy like Lindy Ruff. And, we've seen the players that Lindy's worked with in the past, guys who don't even know people can say what they want about Daniel Briere. First, I'm not making that comparison between those 2 players, but the Sabres were so good. Daniel Briere never knew what the defensive zone was, bro. Like he didn't care about the defensive zone, but they were so good top to bottom and so deep that it didn't matter if he wasn't great in his own end. Like realistically, Derek Roy was a better 200-foot player, like defensively at least, than Danny Briere, and he was. But he made work with guys like Thomas Vanek, Maxim Afinogenov, plenty of guys on those rosters back in the day. I know it's a different game now, but I can trust in Lindy to find a way to make it work more than I have coaches in the past.
For sure. And I would say that I think there have been rumors that Jeff Skinner wasn't exactly a Lindy Ruff type player, which you can argue until the end of the day. Nobody really knows, but they did end up buying him out. So maybe Skinner, in the way that it didn't fit Ralph Kruger's vision, I think this is a completely different discussion because Lindy Ruff is a way better hockey coach than Ralph Kruger ever was. And
not the league anymore for a reason.
Used and didn't use Jeff Skinner was unconscionable. But I would say that Lindy probably identified that for what he wants to do this upcoming season in the both offensive and the defensive zone, that Skinner wasn't a good fit. And as of right now, as we stand on July 30th, they have not replaced Jeff Skinner's offense. So if that's going to be Yuri Kulik in his first full professional season, you're expecting a lot of a guy to do that. Maybe they're expecting the combination of Jason Zucker, and they're hoping for similar 2022, 2023 seasons from Dylan Cousins, Tage Thompson, and Alex Tuck, which I think is definitely reasonable to expect, especially way better than last season. But you do need to replace that goal-scoring production somewhere because Jeff Skinner was good at really good at one thing, and that was scoring goals for the past 3 years. So they're going to have to figure that out. And like we've talked about, there is a lot of time to do that. And I think a lot of opportunity as well.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Out of the players that are still available to be like a top 6 guy, obviously Necas is no longer in discussion. I saw people still talking about Ehlers, Patrick Laine.
Yeah, a lot of Laine smoke.
I like Laine. I'm a big fan of Laine. I listen
for that role. I would love it.
Listen, like realistically, how much does that cost the Buffalo Sabres?
Well, he's currently on his own contract, and if they were to trade for him, there would have to be some retention on Columbus's side, right? So I think
there's 1 year less left on his deal than what was on Skinner's deal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so as well. So I think you're getting obviously a guy that is way younger, a little bit more specialized in what he does best, which is score goals. He was a really good power play player early on in his career. I think Columbus, especially in their rebuild, would be willing to retain some of the salary for the next couple of years, or even just this season, which the Sabres don't necessarily need, but they also don't want to pay a guy $8 million coming off the season and the troubles that he had. So I would say it would be a pick, a prospect, and maybe some retention, and then you go from there. And the Sabres have all of that in spades. So, yeah, I personally don't think it would take that much. And you're getting a guy with so much upside, with so much potential, and also proven production at the NHL level for 350 plus games. I think I was looking at it this week. He has 300 plus points in like 390 games or something. Like, he has produced at the NHL level for a very long time. Everybody knows
that he has. And again, I know the injuries with, I guess he still is a shoulder thing. I know
he's
still recovering, but like obviously he spent some time in the players assistance program, which good for him.
Combination of both things. You got to think that he'd be close to ready come October.
Yeah, I have to be happy with a player putting his mental health first. I mean, we're both on board with that, right? Like, you know,
I mean, if anyone's not on board with it, get a grip.
Get a grip, yeah. Like, there's things bigger than sports, guys. You know, and if anybody who's gonna sit there and say they've never dealt with anxiety or depression, then you're lying. You just are.
And like, who knows what it was? It's just more so.
It's none of our business.
He's been in a bad situation in Columbus for a couple years, and he felt like he needed to get some help, which it seems like he's did, and he's feeling better. And he did what he needed to do, and hopefully that only means good things for his actual hockey career moving forward.
Yeah. How more deadly would that power play be, man? Just imagine having those out for both Tage Thompson and Patrick Laine.
Yeah, significantly. You just add another option that the defense has to worry about. That's like adding another. That's like trading. I think the NFL equivalent would be the Bills trading for Brandon Ayuk. That is at its current stage for a young wide receiver, obviously looking for a new deal in that case, but proven production over 4+ years in the league, coming to a team that already has a lot of weapons, that is looking to take that next step. Obviously, the Bills are much farther along than the Sabres are, but that's something that a lot of Bills fans have talked about for a long time. Obviously, the receiver group is completely overhauled this offseason. But if you add another option, not only for that power play, but for that top line, you have Tage with Tuck and Laine, or you put him with Peterka and Quinn. You have a variety of different options to choose from, especially if he's healthy and he's feeling better than he was. So yeah, I think a lot of people, because there are detractors in any situation, that would be like, oh, he's on the downslope of his career, his best days are behind him, that he is not an $8.7 million a year player. Maybe not, but he's also in a horrible situation in Columbus, and he did what he needed to improve both his mental and physical health, and you give that type of guy a shot.
Yeah, I agree. Like, even if he's not going to give you 40 goals, like, with retention, if he gives me 25, 30, how are you disappointed? Like that's more than. I personally think he's a better defensive player than Skinner was. Not that there is a massive gap between the two, but he's he's a massive body.
Hard not to be a better defensive player than Skinner.
Yeah, I know. But and just that shot, just that release, like, so sick. And he's just a bigger player. Like, imagine, say you were to put him on the top line with Tuck and Thompson.
And he's like 20, 25, 26 years old.
Yeah. Agree. So, sign me up all day. Sign me up all day.
I think 95% of fans and supporters would be very happy with it. And that's just one option that is a very, very realistic possibility given the situation Columbus is in, and also the cap situation the Sabres have, provided they are willing to give up more picks and prospects, which it seems like they are, given that they traded one of their top prospects for a third-line center who is still very young in Ryan McLeod and has the ability to potentially play wing on the second line or play with some of your better players, as he did with Leon Draisaitl last season. Kevin Adams has proven that he's willing to do the thing that we've been screaming at him to do, which he did. So now it's a matter of doing one or two more things and getting the team in a better position than they currently are.
So one thing I want to get into before we get into that Devin Levi interview, which I had a chance to listen to, which was really, really well done by Ingoal. Friend of the program, Andrew Peters, kind of came out with a report, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, right around the start of free agency, that players, and I think he referenced Necas specifically, but I think there were a couple other players too that he flat out reported that would not come to Buffalo, would not sign an extension here. And that was the holdup. Players just didn't want to come here. It was refuted by, other people. I'm not going to try and name names like Chad. I know Chad DeMinicis refuted it. Not to just throw anybody under the bus. But then it came out from Frank Saravelli yesterday that was in fact what happened. There was an offer on the table from Buffalo, and he said he would not sign an extension. How worried are we about this, Hurls?
I'm very worried. The team hasn't made the playoffs for 13 years. The ownership doesn't necessarily seem super committed to the future of the team, especially compared to how committed they are to the other team in the city and how much revenue that team brings. The GM is in a position where it looks like he's pretty desperate to save his job at the moment. They've had 17 head coaches in the past 7 years. The fans, deservedly, are extremely frustrated. They're not going to games because they haven't won in so long. Coming off a season where there was finally some hope going into last year, and it was almost completely shot down in the first 2 to 3 months of the season. I'm extremely worried that players around the league do not want to come play for the Sabres. Aside from the guys that they already have in the room, which seems like the culture is better than what people think it is around the league, yeah, it's not a good situation. And you know what solves all of that? Winning. As soon as they start winning games, guys are going to want to come to play in Buffalo again, because everybody knows that it's one of the best hockey markets in the league when you have even a tiny bit of success. You've seen all the RJ night and the Ryan Miller night and the Kyle Okposo 1,000 games, the Skinner 1,000 games, and when this team has gotten on a win streak in the past 7 years. But aside from that, it's been pretty bleak. So I'm not surprised at all that Martin Necas didn't want to come play for the Sabres. I'm not surprised at all that we're on the no trade clause list of probably 85% of players in the league. Because over the past 14 years, it's been one of the worst situations in hockey.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to, again, like you said, the Eichel situation with his neck. As a player looking at that, outside looking in, you have to think, well, do I really want to play for a team that's not going to allow me to put my health first, and what health path I want to choose first? You just obviously just the downward spiral over 13 years now that this team has been on, just not being able to figure it out. High draft pick after high draft pick, rebuild after rebuild, still can't figure it out. Obviously the arena is not one that you want to play in aesthetically, because it's really outdated. The fan experience isn't that great. It hasn't been. We got a new roof, and we're getting a new Jumbotron, which we leaked out a picture of, the old one coming down recently. Still haven't seen anything about the new one being assembled yet. I know the Sabres plan on keeping fans updated with that, but it's still the same seats. I'm assuming it's still the same amenities that and listen, I've been in the Bills facility at the field house. Their rehabilitation room. Again, I've never been that. It's been a long time. So I played at the arena before, but as far as I can tell, and again, I know one team makes vastly more money than the other. One team makes money, their team doesn't. But the rehabilitation center that team has compared to the Sabres, the pools. I remember I walked by and just masseuses on hand, just people just everything, man. You walk by, see that stuff as a player, whether you're a visiting player or not, you're like, shit, man, they take care of their guys. I just don't see that from the Sabres. Again, it's been a while since I played there, so I don't know for sure. But judging from the way the arena looks and the way things have been taken care of, I imagine it's probably not to the same scale as the Bills. they probably outsource a lot of stuff, I'd imagine. But at the end of the day, like, you're an opposing player. Like, why would you want to come here? Why? Like, for what reason? Like outside of if you were coming into a team that is winning currently and you have a chance to win a cup, that might make you want to be like, okay, I want to, I want to play there because they gave me the best chance to win. They're going to pay me, yada, 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 whatever. But like the outside stuff, there aren't many reasons, Hurls.
No, there aren't. But I do think guys around the league do know that the market is good. They do know that the fans are extremely passionate. Obviously, it's very close to Canada. There's a long history of success with the franchise, even earlier this century and this decade, but even going back into the early 90s and the 80s and the 70s as well. So it's not like the franchise is in as bad of a place as, let's say, the Coyotes were before they were moved to Utah. It is not ideal by any means. And like we said, winning solves all. The New York Jets have a 13-year playoff drought as well, and their fans are still going to games, and they're still excited about this season, and they've made moves, and they've invested money and whatnot. It's obviously a different situation and a bigger market, but at the end of the day, like, you're not going to have sustained success as a franchise if you don't win games or you don't make the playoffs. So that's what it comes down to. And I really, really do believe that a lot of the issues that we're talking about, especially guys wanting to come play for the team and being a little bit more interested, will be solved when the profile of the team is lifted, at least around the league, when they do start winning again. Like, you could even see it towards the end of the 2022-2023 season when they were going on that run, when Devin Levi got called up and they were playing meaningful games into early and mid-April, that they were 1 point away from the playoffs, obviously. I think the league is better off when the Sabres are good. I think everybody knows that. And when it does happen, I think it's going to remind us all of what it felt like in the mid-2000s and even in 2011 when they made the playoffs last, when they still had a team that was scrappy, that was fighting to get in, a Lindy Ruff coach team. So I think that's partially the reason they brought Lindy back. He's been successful with multiple teams in multiple situations since he left, and they're trying to recapture some of that good feeling. And I do think it was a smart move from both a PR and a coaching perspective.
I couldn't agree with you more. I want to transition to the last thing here. I listened to an interview that dropped today from In Goal Magazine, their podcast. Again, it's one of my favorite goalie podcasts, next to Two Goalies, One Mic, to listen to as a goalie, because they have a lot of great guests on, a lot of good insight. They have, reviews on certain equipment. They had a Bauer helmet on today that was pretty interesting. Talk about goalie sticks. It's really a well done podcast by In Goal. And they had Devin Levi on. He was really, he gave him quite a bit of time. He was up in, I want to say, BC or, near Quebec. I believe they said he was in a locker room when he did this interview. But he talked a lot about this past season, his first year. I mean, he does that, what is it, the Sense Arena thing, I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He's a big advocate of that. I know Joey Decourt is too, and he talked a little about that too. But one thing he really touched on, and I have a direct quote here. I'm not sure. Do you think we could play that? I could play it through my phone through the thing. Like, I think it'd be a problem, probably, right?
No, it's
all right, I'm gonna play the quote, but it was in regards to face, and we've talked about this so many times on this podcast too, about you really find out who a goalie is when they're faced with adversity, right? And we're gonna play this clip here from Devin Levi. It's like a 2-minute clip, but it's really great insight about what he went through in Buffalo, and just that being sent down kind of unexpectedly. He wasn't really fully expecting it, and how he felt about it. And I some people might be surprised. I personally am not. I don't think you will be either. But guy, so reminiscent the way he speaks. He sounds like Ryan Miller, man. Just the way Ryan Miller used to talk about the game and the position. So here's the one clip. We'll play it real quick. 1 second.
It's pretty cool to see how the challenge and the adversity that you're faced with on one day is the reason why you get to climb that mountain the next day.
Can you give me an example? Are you comfortable giving me an example?
Yeah, for sure. So the first time that I got sent down to Rochester, I didn't expect it. And it was my first experience with, kind of getting let off. And, it went really well. I had a good talk with Kevin Adams and the rest of the coaching staff. It was the right decision for me to be able to go and play and get games, get more experience, get comfortable. And, you never want to get sent down.
Right.
So it definitely took a second to kind of process and, understand that this is going to be a great experience. I think I could have gone into that with a negative mind and made it a negative experience, but I took it very positively, even though it was definitely a challenge. Definitely a challenge. But what happened was my time in Rochester ended up being unbelievable. I had such a good time there. It was so good for my game. The boys were unbelievable. I had so much fun. I really felt like my comfort with, being on the ice, taking shots, like kind of rose the more I played there. And I was able to get settled. I was there for a little bit, and it was a great experience. And that low became, a high. Really, really enjoying my time there. And then, kind of riding that wave of the high. I got called back up, and I played 3 games, and those 3 games were probably the best 3 games that I felt in, probably out of all my NHL games. So really seeing how, those moments of adversity really are there for a reason to get you ready for your next climb. You're never going to go down and keep going down forever. There's always a rebound. And even when you're up there, there's a rebound down. And, kind of expecting that makes it easier to manage the highs and the lows, and understanding that it's like the yin and yang, they follow each other. They're only possible with each other. So, those moments where you feel, are hard and that you have some adversity, just being able to smile in the face of that and knowing that it's good for you it's really hard to do.
I was going to say, it's easy to recognize it now. Were you able to in the moment? Maybe not immediately, but it sounds like you had some awareness of this even in the moment.
Yeah, maybe a little bit in the moment. It's more looking back on, wow, that was pretty cool. But having experienced that, you can kind of feel it going into your next moment, your next high, your next low. You kind of know, that there's light at the end of the tunnel. As long as you keep being positive and, you're looking at the end of the tunnel.
Dealing with us. Maybe not even.
So you got all that, Hurls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like just the insight and just the maturity level is insane to me. Like, he's right. He could have taken that in a very negative direction, like being sent down after starting the first 4 games of the season. The team was kind of a train wreck and wasn't really on him. And, some goalies might look like, well, why am I being used as a scapegoat? Why am I, fill in the blank? How, us as goalies, we've all been there. Just the maturity of that answer. And just the one quote that really, it was right in the beginning. Downs evolve into ups. The challenge and adversity you're faced with one day is the reason to climb that mountain the next day.
Yeah.
This kid's 21. Is he 21?
No, it's really, really encouraging to hear. And I think we all knew that, given what we already knew about him. Obviously, you've spoken with him before, and, his family and everything that we've heard about how intelligent he is, not only on the ice with how he approaches the game, but even how he is off the ice. He was I think a computer science major at Northeastern, and even hearing about his hobbies off the ice, how he took up painting when he was in Rochester just to fill his free time rather than just being on his phone or thinking about hockey. The kid is wise beyond his years, and it's really apparent even listening to him speak. He's extremely well spoken, and he's not just saying things to say things. I think that's a common trend that we hear with hockey players, especially in interviews. They're just saying things when they talk to the media or go on a podcast just for the soundbite, just to get something out there and get it in the media. I really feel as though Devin Levi is extremely conversational, and he has meaning behind everything that he's saying and that everything he wants to get out there. And he's extremely authentic in the way that he talks about the things that he cares about, which obviously is goaltending first and foremost. So I'm super encouraged about everything to do with Devin Levi moving forward. And that includes potential adversity this season if UPL doesn't give up the net to him, which is a very distinct possibility. Because as it currently stands, Luukkonen is the number one goalie on the Sabres.
100%. You don't sign the deal unless he is.
He will be the starter on this team unless he doesn't play well and gives that up to Devin Levi. And I'm very confident that if Luukkonen does, or let's say, God forbid, he has an injury or anything else, that Levi will be prepared, and he'll be way more prepared than he was given the experiences he had in Rochester and how well he did there and how he handled that adversity of being sent down, going to the AHL, just like every single other goalie in basically NHL history, especially at his age, has done, and how well he performed there, how well he performed in the regular season and in the playoffs, the amount of shots he got. I think we all know how high we are on Devin Levi, but at the same time, hearing these things and hearing his point of view of how he dealt with that adversity and how he's going to learn from it and be better is extremely encouraging, and I can't wait to see everything he does.
There's a mosquito in here that's been flying around my face. I think I got him.
You got something.
You have no idea how much this thing has been driving me nuts.
You got something on your wall, that's for sure.
Yeah, I knocked something down on the wall. Not sure if I killed it, but I apologize, folks. I didn't mean to distract people from what was going on. It's just that's why I full screened you earlier, because I was trying to get it earlier and I couldn't. But no, to your points, yeah, it's UPL's net until it's either he loses it by his play or due to injury. I think that you have, as Devin Levi, he's, again, we heard his maturity, and I'm going to tweet out a few of those clips from the Two Goalies with Mike account, probably either tonight or maybe tomorrow morning for people to listen to. Because again, I couldn't suggest it more. The kid he gave him about like 30 to 45 minutes of his time. I think it was, I don't know exact amount of time he gave him, but gave him quite a bit of a time. And for goalies, young goalies too, just the insight. Yeah. It's second to none. And they even said this is Devin, out of all the goaltenders and people they've interviewed, Devin Levi is easily a top 5 nicest guys they've ever interviewed.
Yeah, and you can just tell, as we know, his family, how well he's raised and how humble he is. And I just really keep going back to how extremely authentic and thoughtful he is. And that says a lot about who he is as a person and how that's going to translate to him as a hockey player. I don't necessarily think who you are as a person always translates, but I think it's a good sign when you are as genuine and authentic as he is, and clearly very intelligent and mature, especially at his young age, to how he's going to be as an NHL player moving forward.
Yes, 100%. Last two things I want to bring up. This comment from Big Fungus. Unless he comes in and has a stellar training camp, which he did last year. I think he belongs in Rochester this year. I don't think they signed Reimer to go play in Rochester when he played meaningful games for Detroit. I'll agree and disagree. I think Reimer was brought in to be a security blanket in net. At the end of the day, he signed a 2-way contract. You don't sign a 2-way contract if you think he's going to be in Buffalo. So they're keeping their options open there with James Reimer. He is on the old. He's I don't want to compare him for obvious reasons to Craig Anderson, but he is the next version of Craig Anderson in terms of goaltending. You know what I mean?
In terms of veteran experience,
yes,
it's not as much as Craig Anderson, but you're getting a guy who's played meaningful games in the NHL for 10 plus years.
Agreed. And then one last thing too. I did, and this does happen from time to time, and it does feel a little pretty good. So I'm going to give us a little bit of a stick tap here. Was recognized at work today via the podcast. Shout out to John Stanton. You can find him at JFuzzyWuzzy on Twitter. He's actually been a long-time listener. I've seen him always engage on a lot of our stuff. Reached out and said wanted you to know how much he loves the show. He just finished listening to our last episode from last Tuesday, off-season chatter. Just want to give him a shout out. Thanks for always listening. Thanks to you all guys for listening. Always tuning in and supporting the show. Do you have any final thoughts, Curls?
No, not really. I think we've covered a good amount, and I think that unfortunately we're not going to have much news through the month of August.
You think you might be
It's kind of how that happened last season. They didn't make too many moves, obviously, and then they went into the season with obviously what we know. It's the time of year that I think everybody is up at the cottage, and GMs are a little bit quieter than they normally are. I think even the fact that they made the trade on July 5th for Ryan McLeod was a little bit later than that normally happens. That period from early to mid-July up until late August, early September is usually very quiet in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we're going to get much news on the front of either, let's say, a Patrick Laine trade or Trevor Zegras or Joel Farabee or what have you, everything that fans are hoping for. But I maintain that I do think it's a very distinct possibility still. And now that they're closer than they were, I think that they obviously still have to figure out the Krebs situation, but I think that's going to be relatively easy for both sides. Once they do that and have a much clearer picture of how much cap space they're going to have going into this season.
How much could Peyton Krebs honestly cost?
No, it's going to be 1.5, maybe.
If that, man. If that.
So
there are guys making league minimum last season that have more productive years than Peyton
that's
Krebs.
what I'm saying. I think that they're going to have around $7-8 million to spend. I think a lot of people have been worried about the Sabres not spending to the cap in terms of saving money, whether that be because they bought out Skinner, how much money they're going to need in the future years, or what have you. But I think Kevin Adams owes it not only to the team, but to himself and the fans to do whatever he can to get this team to the playoffs. And I think we all know what needs to be done. So I'm cautiously optimistic that he's going to trade either a first-round pick next year, anything that is currently in his arsenal, which includes prospects or even current players in the organization. I think there's something that can be done to make this team better, and I think we all know what it is. So we'll see what happens, but I do think that it's probably going to be a month and a half before.
And we'd also like to have more clarity. Are these the top the three defensive pairings that we're going to go with?
Sure.
Where does Ryan Johnson fit in all of it?
I'm a little bit more confident when it comes to the defense. Another year of Ballmeyer, I'm getting a little bit more acclimated. And Dennis Gilbert I think is a good security blanket, and I love the fact that Ryan Johnson isn't even pictured into that top six at the moment.
Well, that's the thing too. Is he a guy that you might ship out now?
Well, I hope not. I think I would hope that they.
But you're so deep on the left side, Earls. Like, what do you do with him?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. It's not like those guys are, at the end of deals or on the older side of their prime. No, it's it's not.
If a team like Columbus wants Ryan Johnson and a Patrick Laine deal, I would be open to it.
You do it. Do you do that 1-for-1 with salary retention? I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Personally, yeah, 100%.
Anything that gives a proven goal scorer that gets a proven goal scorer into your top six and improves your power play, I think people would give up more than that. So I'm encouraged by what I saw as what we all saw with the Ryan McLeod deal, and I do think he's going to make something similar to improve this team when they play their first game in Prague in early.
As of right now, I've let it be known on Twitter. I've let it be known on this show. I am not confident this team is a playoff team next year.
Not right now.
Based on what they've done. We'll see.
We'll see.
Guys, remember this is brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room, with over 300 beers of true foam at every single one of their locations. They have live music, entertainment, and trivia, and just great vibes. Go check out the Olympics while you're there. Some baseball heading into October. Heading into was the trade deadline today?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, trade deadline was today. A lot of moves were made. I'm a big Red Sox fan. Which isn't something to be too proud of over the last couple of years. But at the end of the day, just great vibes over at Fatty Beer Company. We're just very close to Bill's season. Trust me, the atmosphere there is electric during away games. even and home games as well. So make sure you get over there at Fatty Beer on Instagram and Twitter, fattybeer.com, and of course Buffalo Logo Apparel. You need your shirts, your hats, your hoodies, anything Buffalo sports related. Go to @BuffaloLogo Co. on Instagram, Twitter, buffalogo.com. Search it on Google. You'll find them. Let them know Two Goalies when Mike sent you. They have unbelievable golf polos, some great swag. Go check them out. Buffalo Go Co. Instagram, Twitter. I am Duane from Two Goalies, One Mike. This has been episode 160. Of course, what'd you say?
I didn't say anything.
I thought I heard some in the background there. Until next week, we will talk to you later. And as always, go Sabres. See you guys around.
Different than they